want you to just stop what you're doing for a second.
Yeah.
Put down the coffee, pause the treadmill, whatever it is. Just look at your phone.
Look at the date.
Exactly. Look at the date. Sunday, March 1st, 3:26.
It's a date that is going to be printed in bold text in literally every history book written from this point forward.
Really is. And welcome back to the channel. A Gloom with Tekuldu. Stuck in my mind.
Glad to be here.
And, usually we start these deep dives with a bit of banter, right? Maybe a curious fact about psychology or some new tech gadget I found.
Usually something light.
Right. But today, the only thing stuck in my mind is that the world looks fundamentally just irrevocably different than it did when we went to sleep on Saturday night.
Completely different. The entire geopolitical architecture of the Middle East just shifted on its axis.
Yeah.
We simply aren't looking at the same map anymore.
We aren't. And we aren't talking about a skirmish here.
Yeah.
We aren't talking about heightened tensions or saber rattling.
This is way past that.
We are talking about a massive, coordinated military operation by the United States and Israel against Iran. And the headline isn't just that they attacked.
It's who they killed.
Right. It's who they killed.
Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran.
That is the reality we are waking up to. A decapitation strike on a sovereign nation's leader. Nuclear facilities hit. American troops killed in retaliation.
It's a lot to process.
And if you've glanced at the futures markets, actually, do me a favor.
Don't look at the markets.
Yeah, don't look at the markets yet.
Save yourself the stress for at least another 20 minutes. We will definitely get to the financial heart attack in a bit.
It's just overwhelming. And I think that's the danger right now, isn't it? When you have this much data flooding in.
From everywhere. Social media, state TV, military communique.
Right, the natural human reaction is just to freeze.
Yeah.
You see World War III trending, and you just want to shut down.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. Our job is to slow this down. We've pulled the intelligence reports, the economic analyses, the military data, the diplomatic cables.
All of it.
All of it. We are going to bypass the noise and figure out exactly what happened in the last 24 hours.
Because we need to understand why the price of gas might double by Tuesday.
Oh, Illy.
And what happens when you create a power vacuum in literally the most volatile region on Earth.
There is a logic to the chaos. It's a brutal logic, but it's there. We just have to find it.
So let's start with the event itself. The attack phase. The U.S. is calling it Operation Epic Fury.
And the Israelis have dubbed their component Operation Roaring Lion.
Which, I mean, frankly, it sounds like they are marketing a blockbuster movie.
It does.
But the scale is terrifyingly real.
Yeah.
I want you to break down the numbers for us here. Because when we say massive operation, what does that actually look like in the sky?
It looks like total saturation. We are looking at approximately 900 distinct strikes.
900.
Distinct strikes in just the first 12 hours.
That is, I mean, that's unprecedented.
To give you context, that is significantly higher than the opening salvos of almost any previous conflict in the region in the last 30 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't just the Israeli Air Force doing the heavy lifting, though they were obviously central to the mission.
The U.S. brought the big guns.
The absolute biggest. This involved U.S. Navy carrier strike groups positioned in the Gulf and the Red Sea.
Right.
You had guided missile destroyers launching Tomahawks. You had attack submarines operating silently.
But there was a specific deployment that caught everyone's eye, right?
Yes. The real signal, the detail that military analysts are absolutely obsessing over this morning is the deployment of the F-22 Raptors.
The F-22, that's the air superiority fighter, the Ghost.
Exactly. And they didn't just fly them from distant bases in Europe or the U.S.
Where'd they put them?
They deployed them specifically to Israel, alongside KC-46 tankers for mid-air refueling.
So why does that distinction matter so much? Why does it matter where they park the planes?
Because the F-22 is what you call a door kicker.
A door kicker.
Its job isn't necessarily to drop the biggest bomb. Its job is to slip in totally undetected, destroy the enemy's radar, destroy the anti-air capabilities, and basically clear the path.
Clear the path for the rest of the fleet.
Exactly. For the relentless waves of F-35s and F-15s that follow. By parking them in Israel, the U.S. signaled they weren't just planning to strike a few targets.
They were planning to own the sky.
They were planning to completely own the Iranian airspace from minute one.
And it seems like they did. Because the idea, the Israel Defense Forces, they're claiming they wiped out, what, 70% of Iran's air defense batteries?
70% in just the first wave.
That is a staggering number.
If that's accurate, it means Iran is effectively blind and shieldless against any subsequent waves. That paves the road for everything else that happened next.
And everything else included the targets that are usually completely untouchable. The decapitation strike.
Right.
We hear this term in thrillers,
Mm.
but this is the literal definition. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
It is confirmed. President Trump took to social media, Truth Social and X, using his very typical vernacular.
Yeah, he called him one of the most evil people in history.
Right. But what makes this definitive isn't just a post from the White House.
No.
It's that Iranian state TV has actually admitted it.
And that's the tell, isn't it? Because usually an authoritarian regime will do whatever it takes to hide the death of a leader just to maintain stability.
Absolutely. They'll say he's resting or he's recovering from a mild illness.
But here, they couldn't hide it.
They couldn't. The physical evidence was just too loud to ignore. Satellite imagery is already circulating all over Telegram channels showing his compound in Tehran.
And it's not just damage.
That isn't just...
Damn it is leveled. It is complete rubble.
And it wasn't a surgical strike on just one man either. This was a wipeout of the entire organizational chart.
Completely.
Who else was in that room?
The intelligence reports we're looking at indicate the defense minister was there, the commander of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps,
And the secretary of the National Security Council. They were all present, approximately 40 senior regime members in total.
So in one night, practically in 1 minute, you lose the spiritual leader, the military commander, and the national security architect.
It is a headless body right now, and that was clearly the objective.
Yeah.
This wasn't a message. This wasn't a warning shot across the bow to get them to back down.
No, this was an attempt to induce immediate systemic collapse of the Islamic Republic's command structure.
Exactly. But they didn't stop at the leadership. They went back to the nuclear sites, too.
Fordo and Natanz.
Yes. And you'll remember the 12-day war back in June 2025.
Right. The U.S. hit those sites then.
They did. But the damage assessments afterwards showed it was mostly surface damage. The centrifuge is deep underground. They just kept spinning.
It felt like they were just mowing the grass, but the roots were still firmly planted.
Precisely. The reports coming in now suggest this wave was the bunker buster wave.
They went deep.
They drilled deep. They were trying to physically collapse the mountains on top of the facilities.
So here is the question that I keep coming back to. And I think it's what everyone is asking themselves right now.
Okay.
Is this just about the nukes? Or is this something bigger? Because you don't kill the supreme leader just to stop a centrifuge.
No, you don't.
You can do that with cyber warfare. You can do that with sabotage.
That is the critical distinction here. If you look at the rhetoric coming out of the White House over the last 24 hours, Trump isn't talking about containment anymore.
No, he's explicitly calling for regime change.
He's urging the Iranian people to, quote, take their country back.
Which is a massive shift.
It's a political objective, not a military one. Israel, meanwhile, is defining the goal as removing existential threats.
Regime change.
Hmm.
That phrase has a lot of heavy ghosts attached to it.
It certainly does.
You think of Iraq, you think of Libya. It rarely goes according to plan. It sounds great in a speech, but the reality on the ground is usually just incredibly messy.
And that exact anxiety exists inside the Pentagon, too. This is actually one of the most interesting subplots of the last day.
The internal pushback.
Right. There are leaks, very credible ones, suggesting significant friction between the political leadership and the military brass. Specifically, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane,
The guy in charge of the actual armies.
the top military officer. General Kane reportedly issued secret warnings to the administration in the lead-up to this operation.
Warning them not to do it.
He wasn't saying we lack the capability. He wasn't saying we can't do it. He was saying we shouldn't do it. He argued that the complexity of a decapitation strike, combined with the complete lack of a day-after plan, would lead to high American casualties and massive regional chaos. He was the voice of extreme caution.
And the president just overruled him.
The political will crushed the military caution. Trump wanted the strike. And now, unfortunately, we are seeing exactly why General Kane was so worried.
Because Iran didn't just fold.
They did not.
Which moves us to the second part of our deep dive. The empire strikes back. Or in this case, the republic strikes back.
Right.
I think a lot of people, maybe even some people in Washington, expected Iran to be paralyzed by the shock of losing Khamenei.
That was the huge gamble. The working theory was that if you cut off the head, the body stops moving.
But it didn't.
No. Because the IRGC has contingency plans for exactly this scenario. They have literally spent decades preparing for a war where their top leadership is taken out.
So the retaliation was already baked in.
Their retaliation was immediate, and it was broad. They didn't wait for the funeral processions to finish.
And they didn't just shoot some missiles into the empty desert to save face, did they?
No. In previous flare-ups, you'd see what analysts call choreographed strikes.
Right, like hitting evacuated bases.
Exactly. Missiles hitting empty dirt just so they could say, hey, we retaliated, to their home audience without actually starting a full-blown war.
But this was different.
Very different. They were aiming to kill.
They hit U.S. bases directly.
We have reports of strikes on 27 different U.S. military installations across the Middle East.
27.
Qatar, Kuwait, the UAE. In Kuwait, the Ali Al Salem Air Base, which is a major, massive logistics hub for the U.S., had its runway totally cratered.
But the one that really stood out to me when I was reading the brief was Bahrain.
Yes, Bahrain is the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet.
Can we pause on that for a second? For people who don't follow naval deployments closely, what does the Fifth Fleet actually represent in that region?
The Fifth Fleet is the absolute nerve center of American naval power in the Middle East. It commands the aircraft carriers, the destroyers, the minesweepers.
So it's the big boss.
Right. Hitting the headquarters in Manama is like punching a police officer in the throat right inside the precinct.
Wow.
It is a direct, brazen challenge to U.S. dominance. It essentially says, you are not safe anywhere.
And it wasn't cost-free. We have confirmed casualties now.
Pentagon has unfortunately confirmed 3 U.S. troops killed and 5 wounded.
And that changes the domestic calculation in the U.S. instantly.
Completely.
Because when flags come home draped over coffins, it's not just a surgical strike on the news anymore.
It's a war.
Exactly. The American public tolerates a lot of abstract geopolitical maneuvering, but dead troops changes the national mood very, very fast.
It is a war. And Israel has taken heavy fire as well. We've seen massive missile barrages hitting Tel Aviv.
And did they get through the Iron Dome?
They did.
Right.
And this is important to understand. They bypassed the Iron Dome and the aero systems simply by sheer volume.
Just overwhelming the system.
Exactly. When you fire hundreds of missiles all at once, you only need 1% to get through to cause an absolute tragedy.
And tragically, they did get through.
They did. Residential buildings in Beit Shemesh, which is west of Jerusalem, were hit. At least 6 civilians are reported dead there. And sirens have just been sounding nonstop across central Israel and the West Bank.
And this is spilling over. This is the part that terrified me when I was going through the reports this morning. We always hear about the Ring of Fire.
The proxy network, yeah.
Right. Which is usually a metaphor for the borders surrounding Israel. But now we're seeing actual explosions in places that are usually synonymous with luxury tourism, with total stability, like Dubai.
This is the Scenario 3 fear coming to life. The conflict isn't staying contained to just the primary combatants.
It's spreading.
Fast. In Bahrain, a Crown Plaza hotel in Manama was actually hit. The U.S. is frantically moving personnel out of all hotels and into hardened bunkers.
And what about the UAE?
Debris from an intercepted drone caused a massive fire at Jebel Ali port in Dubai.
And that's a huge port.
One of the busiest commercial ports in the world. And there was a civilian death reported in Abu Dhabi from falling debris as well.
Imagine being a tourist in Dubai right now. You're sitting by the pool with your overpriced cocktail, looking at the skyline, and you see a drone interception right overhead.
It shatters the illusion.
Completely. That shatters the image of safety that these Gulf economies heavily rely on.
It does. The message Iran is sending is incredibly clear. If we burn, you burn. No one is safe. There is no neutral ground here.
Even Oman got hit.
Oman was hit too. The port of Duqm. An oil tanker, the Skylight, was attacked off Musandam.
Which brings us to the part that is going to hit every single person listening, regardless of whether they care about geopolitics or not.
The economy.
Section 3, the economic nightmare. You mentioned the Skylight tanker being attacked. That's a serious foreshadowing, isn't it?
It is the absolute canary in the coal mine. We have to look at the economic analysis that came out from TSEGL.
That's the International Crisis Group regarding logistics.
Right. They released a flash report immediately after the strikes, outlining 3 potential scenarios. And none of them are good, but one of them is catastrophic.
Because of the choke point, the Strait of Hormuz.
The jugular vein of the global economy.
Let's visualize this for everyone.
Sure. It is a very narrow strip of water between Iran and Oman. At its absolute narrowest point, the shipping lanes are only 2 miles wide in either direction.
2 miles, that's nothing.
It's tiny, and 20% of the world's oil passes through that tiny gap every single day.
And Iran controls the entire northern shore of it. I mean, they can basically throw rocks at the ships if they really wanted to.
Exactly. The IRGC has officially initiated what they are calling a partial closure. They have issued warnings to all commercial vessels saying, quote, no passage is allowed.
Okay, but warnings are just words.
Mhm.
Are the ships actually stopping? Because in global trade, money usually talks a lot louder than threats.
They don't have a choice.
Hmm.
And here is the mechanism that people often forget when we talk about global shipping.
Insurance.
Insurance.
Right.
It's not just about the captain's bravery or the company's willingness to risk a hull. It's about the actuaries sitting in London.
Right.
Lloyd's and other major maritime insurers are rapidly suspending all coverage for the region.
Because the risk is just unquantifiable right now.
Yeah.
And no insurance means no voyage.
Precisely. If you can't insure the hull and the cargo, the bank literally won't let you sail. It's a fundamental breach of contract. So tanker buckings are halting as we speak. The ships are just dropping anchor and waiting.
So the oil effectively stops flowing. What does that actually do to the price at the pump for the average person?
Well, the markets were closed for the weekend when the attack happened, which might have been a small mercy.
Give everyone a second to breathe.
But Asian markets are opening now, and it is absolute chaos. TICGL predicts that in their optimistic scenario, meaning a short conflict lasting less than 2 weeks, oil might stay in the $75 to $85 range.
Okay, that's painful, but we've survived that before. That's an expensive summer road trip, but it's not an economic disaster.
True. But that's the wildly optimistic view. That assumes this ends quickly and cleanly.
Which nothing in the Middle East ever does.
Never. The nightmare scenario, or scenario 3 in their report, assumes a full closure of the strait lasting 3 months or more.
3 months.
In that case, analysts are predicting oil hitting $150 plus per barrel.
$150. That literally doubles the price of everything.
Everything.
Transport, food, plastics, manufacturing.
All of it. And the flight to safety assets will skyrocket. They predict gold soaring to $4,000 an ounce. But the real kicker is the R word.
Recession.
TICGL predicts a guaranteed global recession if the strait remains closed for that long.
And it's not just the war shock on its own, right? It's compounding with other economic factors that were already in play. The report mentioned Trumpnomics.
Right. Context is key here. We can't view this war in a vacuum. The global economy was already quite fragile, trying to adjust to the new U.S. trade policies.
The high tariffs and protectionism.
Exactly. This war acts as a dual shock. Developing economies are incredibly vulnerable right now. The report specifically singled out Tanzania and other African nations as being at critical risk.
Why them specifically? Why Tanzania?
Because they get hit twice in rapid succession. First, they get hit by the trade policy shock affecting their exports.
They can't sell their goods as easily?
Right, the markets are restricted, and now they get absolutely hammered by the energy price shock on their imports.
Because they have to import all their fuel.
Yes, it's a perfect storm for sovereign debt defaults across the global south. It triggers a cascade of economic failure that is very hard to stop once it starts.
So your gas is ridiculously expensive, your retirement investments are shaky, and the global supply chain is fundamentally broken. Great.
It's bleak.
Let's shift gears to the geopolitical chessboard, Section 4. Who is standing where in all this? Because usually you have the usual suspects lining up behind their allies, but this situation feels, I don't know, a lot more messy.
It is incredibly messy. And sitting right on the fault line, literally and metaphorically, is Turkey.
Turkey is in such a delicate position here. They share a massive land border with Iran.
Right.
They are a NATO member, so they are technically militarily allied with the U.S., but they have very good relations with the Gulf states, and they absolutely rely on Iranian energy imports. What is Ankara saying right now?
President Erdogan is walking a tightrope, a very thin, visibly shaking tightrope. He has come out and condemned the attacks by both sides.
Playing both sides, or just trying to survive both sides?
I think surviving is the right word. He condemned the U.S. and Israeli aggression as a violation of sovereignty.
Which appeals to his domestic base and the broader Muslim world.
Exactly. But he also strongly condemned Iran's retaliatory attacks on the, quote, Gulf brothers.
Appealing to the investors in Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
Precisely. He's trying to position Turkey as the adult in the room, the essential mediator.
And his foreign minister, Hakan Fidan, has been incredibly busy, from what I've read.
Frantically working the phones. He's calling Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. He is desperately trying to broker a ceasefire.
Because Turkey is terrified of that ring of fire we talked about.
They are terrified of it being right on their doorstep. If this turns into a sustained regional war, millions of new refugees could push toward the Turkish border.
And they already have a massive refugee population.
It is a nightmare scenario for Ankara. But there's another layer to Turkey's problem right now, which is the information war.
Oh, yeah, I saw this on social media. There were huge rumors flying around that Turkey actually helped the U.S. with the initial attack.
Exactly. Disinformation is a primary weapon of war now. It's not just bullets, it's tweets and telegram posts.
Right.
There were widespread claims circulating that Turkish airspace or the Incirlik air base were used by the U.S. for the strikes.
Which, if true, would instantly paint a massive target on Turkey's back for Iranian retaliation.
Immediately. So Turkey had to aggressively and publicly clarify that no, they were not involved in any capacity, no airspace, no bases.
They had to put that fire out fast.
They know that if Iran even suspects Turkey was complicit, those ballistic missiles hitting Tel Aviv could easily start flying toward Istanbul or Ankara. They are fighting a desperate defensive war on the information front.
And what about the big global powers? Russia and China. Usually they'd be making loud threats by now, moving assets around.
They're being stern, but entirely predictable. Putin called the killing of Khamenei a cynical violation of human morality.
Which is pretty rich coming from him, but okay.
Right. And China issued a statement saying they are shocked and urging respect for national sovereignty.
Lots of words, not a lot of actual action.
For now, yes. You have to remember, China is the single biggest buyer of Iranian oil.
Of course.
They are furious about the disruption because it actively hurts their own economic targets. But they aren't sending the Navy to the Gulf just yet.
They're waiting.
They are watching to see if the U.S. gets bogged down in a protracted mess.
And what about Europe?
The EU, through High Representative Kaja Kallas, is calling it a defining moment. But curiously, she expressed hope for a new future for Iran.
That's a very diplomatic European way of saying maybe regime change isn't the worst thing in the world, provided we don't all blow up in the process.
It's a classic hedge. They are deeply afraid of the chaos, but they certainly wouldn't mind a different, less hostile Iran.
Yeah, and the UN.
Secretary General Guterres is just warning of the brink, issuing standard condemnations of the escalation. But honestly, looking at the streets of the region right now, we are already over the brink.
The reaction on the streets is just violent.
It is very violent. In Pakistan, specifically in Karachi, there were massive riots attempting to storm the U.S. consulate.
I saw the footage. It was intense.
9 people are reported dead there already. In Iraq, there are huge protests in Baghdad. The government has declared 3 days of mourning.
And just the logistical chaos of it all, airspace is closed across half the Middle East.
Jordan, Iraq, Israel, Lebanon, all completely closed to commercial traffic. Turkish Airlines suspended all flights to the region.
I read a crazy story about the Italian defense minister, Guido Crosetto.
Yes. He actually flew to Dubai to pick up his family who were vacationing there, and he got stuck.
If the defense minister of a G7 nation can't get a flight out of Dubai, you know the situation is profoundly serious.
It really highlights how quickly modern connectivity can just snap.
Exactly. We take for granted that we can move anywhere on the globe in 24 hours. And suddenly the doors are locked. The world gets much bigger and much scarier very, very quickly.
It definitely does.
Let's zoom in on Iran itself now. Section 5. Inside the vacuum, we talked about Khamenei being killed. But who is actually running the country right now? That seems like a very dangerous question to not have a clear answer to.
It is perhaps the most dangerous question of the day. Technically, under the Iranian constitution, a council takes over.
A transitional council.
Right. It consists of the president, the judiciary chief, and a member of the Guardian Council. Their constitutional job is to hold the fort until the Assembly of Experts can meet to select a new supreme leader.
Technically. That's how it works neatly on paper. But in reality?
In reality, power abhors a vacuum. The Constitution is just a piece of paper. The guns are what's real.
Who holds the guns?
Right now, there are strong rumors that Ali Larijani, the former parliament speaker, is emerging as a key figure trying to stabilize the ship.
He's a pragmatist.
He's a survivor and a pragmatist. He knows how to navigate the factions. But here is the fascinating and frankly slightly ominous part of this succession crisis.
What's that?
Trump explicitly claims the U.S. has a, quote, very good idea of who will take over.
Wait, that implies one of two very significant things.
Go on.
Either they have a preferred candidate they are actively trying to install, like trying to set up a puppet regime, or they have such deep systemic intelligence penetration that they know the Iranian succession plan better than the Iranians do.
Both possibilities are incredibly destabilizing for Tehran. It actively sows paranoia within the surviving leadership.
Oh, totally. You're sitting in a bunker thinking, is the guy next to me a CIA asset?
Exactly. Is he cutting a backroom deal with Washington to save himself? That kind of paranoia can lead to brutal internal purges right at the exact moment when they desperately need unity.
And what about the regular people? On the streets of Tehran.
It's a mixed bag. The regime has completely cut the internet, so we are essentially looking into a black box right now.
But we do know about the civilian costs. There was that tragedy down in Manab.
Yes. And we have to be very clear about the human cost of this so-called liberation. You simply cannot drop thousands of bombs without collateral damage.
It's impossible.
Reports from southern Iran and the city of Menad say an elementary school was hit during the initial strike waves.
God, that's awful.
Some sources are claiming the total toll around the school is near 150 casualties, with confirmed reports of at least 24 students killed.
That is just horrific.
It is, and politically, that's exactly the kind of thing that rallies a population around the flag, no matter how much they might internally dislike their own government.
Right. Trump might be saying, take back your country.
But if regular people are pulling their children out of the rubble, they aren't looking at the U.S. as liberators, they're looking at them as violent invaders.
Exactly. Nationalism is a incredibly powerful drug. When bombs fall on your neighborhood, you don't look at who is running the country, you look at who is bombing your house.
Precisely.
So let's try to wrap our heads around the big picture here. The SOWA, Session 6, Analysis and Future Outlook. How is this fundamentally different from everything we've seen before?
We really have to contrast this with June 2025, the 12-day war.
Right.
That conflict ended in a negotiated ceasefire because the goal was degradation, just slowing the Iranians down.
It was a slap on the wrist, albeit a very hard military-grade slap.
Exactly. This is completely different because the head of the snake, as the hawks in Washington would call it, is gone. The goals are maximalist now.
Regime change.
You don't kill the supreme leader to get a favorable ceasefire. You do it to break the entire system. You do it to end the Islamic Republic as we currently know it.
But what about the nuclear question? Weren't they literally just talking in Geneva a few days ago?
That is the supreme irony of this whole situation. Talks were happening just days ago.
Oman was mediating, right?
Yes, Oman was mediating, and real progress was being reported on a new nuclear framework. And now, the diplomatic track is completely dead.
Obviously.
Trump is saying he prefers diplomacy but uses all options. It's a strategy of bomb and talk.
But usually the bombing makes the talking much, much harder. I mean, it's pretty hard to sit across the table and negotiate with someone who just blew up your boss.
Exactly. The trust is absolute zero. And we haven't even seen the full hand of the proxies yet.
Right, the network.
The Houthis have already announced they are restarting their Red Sea attacks on shipping. But Hezbollah, the Iraqi militias,
The famous axis of resistance.
that is the next major shoe to drop. They have loudly condemned the strikes, but they haven't fully unleashed their arsenals yet.
They're holding back.
For now. If they decide that this is the moment of existential survival for the entire axis, we could see a level of warfare in Lebanon and Syria that completely dwarfs what we've seen so far.
Like what?
Imagine thousands of precision missiles a day raining on Israel from the north, while the U.S. is simultaneously bombing Iran from the south.
Oh, it really feels like we are walking through a minefield in the pitch dark.
We are in completely uncharted waters. You have a decapitated Iranian regime, an aggressively maximalist U.S. and Israel stance, a closed Strait of Hormuz, and a global economy staring straight down the barrel of a deep recession.
It's just a lot to take in, and I think that brings us to the end of what we can reliably unpack today without just speculating wildly into the void.
I agree. We need to watch the next 24 to 48 hours very closely.
The market opening on Monday.
Yes, the markets, the Iranian succession announcement, and the military response from Hezbollah. Those are the key indicators we're watching.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with today. The U.S. and Israel have removed the supreme leader. They say the ultimate goal is to stop the nuclear program and liberate the Iranian people.
That's the stated goal.
But history has a very nasty habit of showing us that when you create a massive power vacuum in the Middle East without a concrete, realistic plan for what comes next,
It rarely goes well.
what fills that void is often more dangerous, more radical, and more uncontrollable than what was there before.
The question is, are we looking at a free Iran or are we looking at a second Syria, but on a massive continental scale?
That is the exact question that should keep us all up tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to think through this with us. Keep your mind open. This is a Klimatakaliyu.
Stay safe out there, everyone.